Scaling a business isn't all glossy headlines and overnight success. It's messy, it's tough, and it's full of lessons that no one warned you about. I'm Nikki Jupp, the founder of Talent Gateway, and I've helped over 100 scale-up leaders to build the right team to enable them to grow with confidence. This is Scaling Stories Unfiltered, where founders, CEOs, and leaders share what really happens behind the scenes. No fluff, no filler, just honest conversations to help you grow smarter. So let's get into it.
Try and go and do something that has some kind of purpose or mission attached to it, because whatever you're going to do, it's going to be unbelievably hard. And actually when you feel that you're doing it for a greater purpose or something that is bigger than you, that's bigger than the bottom line, that really helps pick you up on the down days.
Delighted today to be joined by Celia Pool, who is an award-winning entrepreneur and the co-founder of Dame, a groundbreaking period care brand focused on sustainability and social impact. She and her co-founder launched Dame to innovate products that are better for health and the environment, such as the world's first reusable tampon applicator. From its early days, Dame challenged plastic waste and industry stigma, using bold product launches and creative direct-to-consumer strategies. I'm looking forward to discussing her scale-up journey, both from a business and a personal perspective. So let's dive in. Welcome, Celia.
Hi, Nikki. Really great to be here.
Fantastic. And this for me is going to be really interesting, I think, because of the type of product that Dame was. And I think hopefully we'll discuss some of the unique challenges that you've had to overcome on that journey, both being a female founder and having a product that's in the category that it's in. Without further ado, can we start by you telling me a little bit about your backstory and how you got to the point where you had an idea, and then how was it with your co-founder? Were you friends? How did that come about?
Completely. I think, like all these things with a lot of founders, this idea came from a personal background. It came from a background of me having issues with my periods growing up, having issues with the system, not really liking how it was going. But that sort of always lay quite dormant for me. And actually that was quite a critical part of it. And it basically all came about because around the time I had my first child, I realised I didn't want to go back to my corporate life. I wanted to go back out into the world and create something with purpose, because if I was going to be away from my child, I wanted to make sure I was doing something good. Yeah. I'd always had a sustainable angle inside of me. And it was when this conversation actually just came up between me and my co-founder that I realised all these dormant feelings that I had around periods and around the way that women were treated around periods and the language and the taboo nature and things like that, that really ignited it. And so that's really where it started. And all these kind of business ideas, as soon as you actually start to look under the bonnet, you see a lot more of the inherent problems in the industry. And it was only after we've been working on the first iteration of the business, which actually wasn't called Dame, it was called Sanatrial for a few years. Yeah. And realising that we hadn't quite got it right, that we actually saw the true issues around the sector. And that was all around the plastic waste, the fact that 100 billion period products are thrown away every year, and because they touch the body, they can't be recycled. So this is a cumulative problem that's just getting bigger and bigger. The fact that these products aren't regulated in the EU, anyone can put anything on the shelf.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yep, not tested at all. And so whilst people are incredibly concerned about what they put in their mouth, no one is really thinking about what they're putting inside their body or against really sensitive parts of their skin. So that for me was a real shocking thing. And then obviously it goes back to, again, this kind of conversation around these products, the way that women are made to feel around them and feel very negative around it. And so those were three things that we wanted to change.
So interesting. I'm genuinely shocked, actually, that it's not regulated. How often you use these products and just how personal and close they are. They're inside your body. Yeah, I'm shocked by that. For listeners unfamiliar with Dame, which it ultimately became named, can you describe what your role was in the business? Because obviously, when I've looked at the story, you got to a particular product. So tell us a little bit about that and what was the vision once you got to the Dame? name?
Yeah, so I think the vision was we wanted to create a brand and a company where periods held nobody back. So it was something that we were giving products which were better for your body and better for the planet. And that for us was really important, to have that symbiosis, that combination between the two. For me coming in, I was really important about the brand, the voice, the way we spoke to women, the products we were offering, and all those integral value pieces that went through it. Like most founders, I was doing a lot of different things. I was doing the product, I was doing the fundraising, I was doing the operations, I was doing the sales, the retail, lots of different parts of it. And I think that is just suddenly where you become quite a sort of generalist jack of all trades, because you're having to look at everything across the board. But that in essence is why I think so many people get hooked on entrepreneurship and want to continue doing it, because there is an incredible high that comes from it.
It's the highs and the lows. So you had this incredible idea, and for me, absolutely disruptive in that market.
Yeah, so we started actually the company way back in sort of 2014. And it was at that point one of the first. It was, you were looking at your kind of major companies like Procter & Gamble, who were controlling sort of 70% of the market. And there weren't really any other kind of true innovators coming out there. There were like a few, but we were one of the first. And that was a really exciting ground to be on. And what was equally exciting was, as we went on, more and more people came into the market, and that created a wave and a voice, because there is room enough for everyone. And it was very exciting, but also with that comes a lot of challenges, because you are having to educate, you're having to spend a lot of your time and money and resource talking to the customer, giving them facts like I just gave you about the fact that these products are unregulated. And still I can say that to people and people don't realize it. So it was groundbreaking, and with that came pluses and minuses.
Yeah. So what was the first sign that you had some momentum?
When we were doing the early iteration of the business, it felt very much like we were always pushing against a closed door. It was painful. And we then decided that we wanted to stop, and we wanted to create our own products, and we wanted to start by creating this world first product, which was this reusable tampon applicator to stop all those billions of plastic pieces going into landfill. And in order to do that, we thought, okay, we're going to test this. And the easiest way for us to test this is on Kickstarter. So we'll get an MVP, a prototype, we'll put it out there. And if we feel that there's a good reaction from it, then we'll go on and develop the product. At the time, we were warned that Kickstarter is a platform that's for majority men in their 20s who live on the West Coast in America. So we thought, okay, this isn't really our target audience, but we'll try. Yeah. And we were blown away by what happened. Within 24 hours, we'd hit our fundraising target. We started trending on Twitter. We had a governor in one of the American states talking about us. We suddenly got press all around the world. And that for us was a blow-up moment. I've even got a picture of me. I don't know why, me and my friends sitting at supper, and all of us on our phones answering messages, because suddenly everything was blowing up. And that was incredible. And from there, it felt like the doors suddenly just went wide open. We started getting national retailers getting in touch with us. We launched in Waitrose within a few months after that. We had MoMA in New York wanting to stock our product because they said it was such a great design innovation. Our product actually won a design award, and if anyone knows about it, is one of the top prestigious design and architectural awards that there is. We had Emma Watson, the actress, pulling out our product and showing us to her 52 million Instagram followers. So there were all this sort of catalyst of events that happened around that launch on Kickstarter. And I think looking back on it, it was because we had been working there for a few years. We had seen where the white space was. And if I'm being really honest, we were very fortunate with our timing, because it was around that time where David Attenborough brought out Blue Planet 2. Suddenly the press wanted to pick up on that stuff. But it was a connection between spotting the fact that this is where our customers' heads were going and making sure that we could capitalise on it. Yeah.
And it's really interesting, I find, that if one of those things wasn't quite right, so the timing wasn't quite right, you could have still had an amazing product, but because the market wasn't quite ready. Yeah, and equally, the market could have been shouting out for something, your product wasn't quite right. And it's these different elements that come together.
Yeah, very much. And yeah, timing and luck play a huge hand in it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things people don't want to hear sometimes, that some of this is luck, it's grunt, it's grind, and some of it is luck and it's out of your control.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the whole thing, is control what you can control and then just give yourself up to the rest.
Yeah, exactly. So what early stage challenge came as a big surprise as you grew, and how did you handle that?
I think the big challenge that came was focus, actually. I remember a few people saying this to me, and then it really hit home that suddenly when you get into kind of that growth, exciting stage, so many opportunities are flung your way. And actually what you don't realise is your most precious thing is your time and your resource.
Yeah.
And you've only got so much, especially if you're a small team, so much in you that you can give. And it's about retaining focus and being able to constantly clarify down what it is that you need to be doing, rather than always thinking, okay, I need to be searching for new ideas or a new strategy or whatever it is. It's actually just having that focus, being able to stay the course, be agile when you need to be, but just keep things focused.
That is quite interesting, because if you reflect as an entrepreneur, and clearly not all entrepreneurs are the same, but often it's that there's a new shiny thing and there's a new opportunity. And from experience and working with founders that aren't able to rein themselves back in, they then create a problem for the business, which is trying to do so many different things, and everybody comes overstretched, and actually they don't deliver on any.
Completely. It's basically having that clarity, sometimes it's like an outside perspective to come in and order your thoughts, because actually you do have a lot of the answers. It's just the order for it, and it's the focus, as we say.
So how did you manage that?
I didn't at times. Completely messed it up a lot of the time. But no, I think moving forwards, I did realise and see the value in having that outside perspective coming in, having that person who wasn't weeds in the business, who was there, who was able to talk, listen, and hold me accountable and say, okay, wait, hold on, Celia, I've heard you talking about the same thing for the last few months. Why haven't you mentioned it? Or
yes,
what's happened to this? You haven't mentioned it for ages. So having that accountability with the focus for me really helped.
Interesting. So that leads on beautifully for us to unpack, as you built the team, were there key people that you hired that made things change, either for the better or for the worse? And the second part of that question is the dynamic between yourself and co-founder. So all around team, just let's unpack that for a little bit.
So, yeah, growing a team, it's a tough, big thing. And I think one thing which surprised me, which I guess I hadn't really thought about, was we were a predominantly female team, which is probably no surprise. And we obviously, being a sort of young consumer product startup, had a lot of young people with us. But actually it was the more, and I hate to use it because I am that person, it was the more mature hires that we made, and more mature women who we made, which were really beneficial. And I'm talking about people who were sort of, one who was on the other side of her kids were moving out, and she brought a clarity and calmness and wisdom to the team, which was really important. And it meant that she'd led teams before, so she could come in, she could take her team, and I didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to feel like I had to overshadow her and helicopter at all. And that was really important, because it wasn't like she still had the energy. She had all the excitement and activity that we needed, but she had that wisdom. And that, I think, was a real surprise to me, because I thought we were just going to be hiring sort of young blood who could get on, work hard, play hard. But actually it was those more wise, mature hires. Those were really important at that early stage.
And do you think that's because, and I often talk about this, as the sort of the founder, the entrepreneur, who is clearly very passionate about the product, and you invest a huge amount in the brand. Do you think it's that need to be able to let go and trust that these wise individuals, let's call them that, you can breathe easy and focus on other things, knowing that they've got your back, they know what they're doing, they've done it before, and you just trust them?
Yeah, I think for me that was a big thing which I learned in my leadership as I went on, was to be able to trust, because obviously, yeah, as you say, it's your baby, this thing, and you've done every single part of it. So being able to hand that over and not think, oh, it's just easier if I do it myself. That was a big thing, and knowing that you could hand it over to someone who you could trust, who you felt might not know everything you know, but did have a really good grounding. That was really critical. And likewise, you need a balance, you need a mix. Having people who were a lot younger and could bring fresh ideas and fresh energy, that was also really important. But yes, it stops you being so spread thin, which it's that difficult balancing point, because at some point you do need to let go of quite a few things. And whilst you want to retain oversight, which is critical, on minor small things, you just need to make sure that it's gone.
So what about the team outside the ones that you hired, the people that you maybe possibly wrapped around you? You talked about someone holding you to account. Where was the value in that sort of team building?
I think there was huge value in that. We also, particularly the time that we were building our team, so we made our first hires. I was really building out the team about 2 weeks before lockdown happened. So that was a really interesting time to be building a team for the first time.
Gosh,
The delights that came from that, because it wasn't like our business stopped. We had to continue growing. Yeah. So therefore, being able to build that kind of company culture, build that accountability and feeling of value was difficult at that early stage. And I think we definitely found it very difficult. I hope that we always tried to keep communication channels open as much as possible. I definitely felt that was such an important part when we went into lockdown, where we were separated. But again, it was trying to make sure that people felt like they were included in the decisions, that they were part of building up this young brand, that they felt that they had a voice, because that's one of the reasons why people go to work at these small brands, is because they want to be able to see that their day-to-day actions have results and tangible results that they can see. So it was about helping everyone to come on that journey as well.
And what about any sort of hiring mistakes you made? Were there any of those that were particularly painful or that stand out? And what did you learn from it, more importantly?
I think definitely hiring mistakes. Yes, I think that happens across the board. I think one of the kind of painful things we learned is, if you feel there's a mistake, you need to act on it quickly. I wouldn't say that we always acted on it quickly. And I think that's where things can get quite tricky, is if it's not working for them and it's not working for you, that will then leach out into the rest of the team. And it's making sure that everyone is getting the best out of it. And so therefore, it's up to you as the leadership team to act swiftly on it. And I definitely wouldn't say that we always did that, but it was a huge lesson that we learned.
Yeah, it's heart and head, isn't it? It's that balance, and they're tough conversations to have. So let's switch from team now and talk about good old fundraising. You touched on it a little bit earlier. You were raising funds for a product that I am sure some people sit and squirm, even now when you talk about a reusable tampon. It will make people uncomfortable. How was that journey, that fundraising journey, and even having conversations about your product in predominantly a male environment?
I've pitched tampons a lot. And at the beginning, you're very much pitching to old white men. That's always an interesting conversation. I've had all sorts. I've had people who actively didn't want to engage with me. I've had people who told me it was too early before breakfast to be talking about this kind of stuff. I've had people who came back and told me that their sort of postmenopausal wife didn't really understand the product. And I was like, you were the person probably explaining it to her, so no wonder she probably didn't understand. Yeah. It was tough, but in some ways I relished and rose to the challenge. I think where I tried hard was to really bring it back to being a product, to taking the emotion out of it and really getting down to the numbers, saying this is half of the global population. This isn't a choice product, this is a necessity product. They get their period every month. They need to use these products. We have products which not only are a more sustainable way for them to have their period, it's something which will actively save them money over their lifetime because it's reusable, so they won't be having to buy it the whole time. And we also have evidence to show that people who use our products, natural products, have lighter periods, less painful periods, and shorter periods. So
that's quite interesting.
It goes back to this thing of, if you're putting something that's synthetic in your body for an extended amount of time, there will be a cumulative build-up. And where there hasn't been enough proper clinical trials done, because those clinical trials are usually financed by said companies who make a lot of money out of them, to show that actually you're getting actually a build-up in these bodies, which is altering the way that we're having our periods. So once you go and look at people, and we did studies on our customers who were using them over time, 80% reported having lighter, less painful and shorter periods.
Wow.
So it's about trying to present those facts to an investor and just say, look, take out the fact that this is periods. Look at this just from a numbers game. This is a really exciting innovation in an area that hasn't been innovated on in decades. So let's look at it and talk
really
about it.
Hasn't, has it?
No.
Not at all. But anyway, well, I could go off on one, but I won't get on the soapbox. So what about, clearly you raise the funds. Clearly you rise and relish to the challenge of almost getting the pushback. And you found a way to navigate the fact that you were marketing, pitching a product that makes some people uncomfortable to talk about, but actually it makes business sense. So that's the angle. What about when you were expanding as a business, either geographically or through different channels? Are there any unanticipated successes that you had that you didn't quite expect, or any challenges where you just couldn't get traction?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we definitely had was we went into retail, as I said, very quickly.
Yeah.
And big retail, like national retailers. Most people start off in your little independent stores and slowly build up. We had always planned to be a direct-to-consumer product for a long time and then build into retail. And I think one of definitely our learnings was that what works in terms of packaging for direct-to-consumer does not work for retail. And actually retail needs a whole different, almost language to get people to walk past, pick up, buy. And we felt that all period products up until that point looked like 80s ski suits, like brightly coloured, spattered, shouting. You walk down the kind of tampon aisle and it's an assault on your senses. And so we wanted to go for something more minimalist, more design-centred. And that was great, but we were missing a few design cues which people needed in order to understand what was inside the box, how to read it, how to pick it up. And that was definitely a big lesson, because it's not like you can quickly change that if you've sold into hundreds of stores. So that, I would say, was definitely like a big challenge for us.
I don't think about those things, obviously, because having never tried to sell into that sector. That's so interesting. Yet, if as a consumer, you take more time, you do your research, you look online, and I would probably even think about the packaging. Minimal would be wonderful. To your point, if you're rushing down an aisle, you need something that's going to grab you.
Exactly, and definitely that aisle. No one is loitering in that aisle at all. Everyone is rushing through.
I remember being young and trying to hide it in your shopping basket. You go that far, don't you? That's really interesting. So the journey was a successful one. Challenging, but you loved it. Clearly, you like rising to that challenge and the opportunity, and what a wonderful thing to have launched. Moving more onto you now on a personal level rather than the business, how did your own leadership style, do you think, change throughout the journey?
I think it changed a lot. I'm the first to hold my hand up and say I made a lot of mistakes. I think, as we've already touched upon, it was the whole kind of learning to delegate and to trust people, and also the sort of learning to trust yourself, and the fact that actually you do hold all the information inside of yourself, and you are the person who knows your business best. But quite often it's just having that clarity to be able to do it and push forward and make those decisions. I think that, that was a kind of like big learning curve for me. I think it's just basically, it's not a sort of strategy problem. It's literally just like a clarity problem. It's getting that and being able to reach out to the right people, take the right advice, and have that like guidance structure in place so that it's not just feeling like it's all falling on you.
Yeah. And what about from the sort of the founder, co-founder? How was that dynamic? Were you very different and you brought completely different skill sets?
Yeah, I think we were very different in our skill sets, in our approach and our outlook. I think that definitely brings a different dynamic into it. It's, I think, very important for, in a business, not just between those two, but between everyone, to be able to have different outlooks and different approaches. So you're not just sitting in a silo in your own thoughts, but also equally to be able to have trust and confidence in your gut and in what's inside of you, and really listen to yourself and back yourself.
So if you could pick a couple of things that stand out for you when you look back and you say they were crucial moments, whether they were challenges you overcome, lessons you learned, positive things, are there 2 or 3 of those that you could share that were sort of those standouts for you?
Yeah, I think the things which was real standouts, as I said, it felt like there was a lot going on at a point in our journey. When lockdown happened, I just had my 3rd baby. It was, at that point, our funding, which we had planned, which was due to be signed in April 2020, dropped. That was a very tough point. And it wasn't just a tough point for us, it was a tough point for many businesses. I remember sitting on the floor with my baby there. I'd actually just won the business award, which felt faintly comical, but because there was no award ceremony for it, I was sitting there, hair bedraggled, with a baby who's probably just vomited on me.
Yeah.
And trying to keep things alive and hearing all these stories of people who were baking sourdough and making jam and thinking that's definitely not my reality right now. But I think what was interesting was the way you pick yourself up, and you have to pick yourself up because you care about this creature, this business, so much that you continue to pick yourself up and you continue to want to do what's best for it, even if sometimes it feels like it's not the best thing for you.
Yeah.
And that I found very interesting. It was a really interesting part of the journey where, because this was essentially my first business, I never imagined feeling as emotionally tied to it.
Yeah.
And that is obviously a good thing, but it also has its downfalls as well. But I think that enables you to carry on pushing and try to do the best for it you can, and realise that actually it's something separate to you, and that often it needs to do things which are, as I say, are right for it and potentially not so right for you.
That's so interesting, that just having the 3 children and going into lockdown, I mean, that just on its own is challenging.
Yeah.
Then layer on the complexities of trying to manage the business and those who work in the business, lead, all those things. They must have been some really challenging times.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't my sort of greatest time that I want to go back to, and I think I'll be with quite a few people who were those parents who were trying to work throughout lockdown and homeschooling went out the window with the 2 old ones. I remember people saying, oh, it's a really good time to make a baby, lockdown. I was like, not for those people who've already got children. They are keeping their legs crossed. No one is making babies in lockdown if you've already got some.
Oh,
And since then, I never want to see an ounce of homework in my house ever again. But it happens, you get through it, and
yeah.
you hopefully are stronger for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sticking with that theme, what keeps you anchored during some of the challenging times? And who do you celebrate with? Let's not just focus on the tough times. There are some fantastic times and some big wins. So, looking at it from both perspectives, how do you stay grounded?
I think, and I've said it again, like having mentors, and mentors come in different shapes and sizes and forms. Having mentors, having someone who knows you, knows your business, but is outside of it, and is there to be that anchor point, that person who you turn to, that person who you can be accountable to, that person who can help bring clarity to your business. That, for me, was critical. And I think at the beginning, I thought a mentor had to be an official person or something, but actually I realised that I got it in different ways, and some of them were more on tap than others, but it was really important. And those are the people who you could celebrate the wins with. Not only obviously your family, who are just so wonderful and brilliant, but those people really, they'd heard about all the tough parts. They'd seen what was going on underneath the business and underneath the bonnet. And that I think was just, and still, I still have them, are the most important people in my business life.
Yeah. And that's quite interesting, I think, for people to hear who are going through it. Because often, and it sounds like, unless I'm misunderstanding, it's that blend. So you'll have some people who are there to mentor or coach, and they're different things. Some who know more about the complexities to do with the business, and some of those where it's important that they come from outside the business and can hold you account without getting involved in the weeds.
Yes, completely. And I think quite often it's those ones who, as you say, are not sector expertises in your business and can actually just sit there and hold you to account and don't have to dive into it. They're often the ones who I found at certain points could be really valuable when I needed to do a course correct or just a kind of reshuffle or a reboot for me. When I was feeling basically like I was drowning and I needed to get my head above water, they were really wonderful.
And I think that's a really important one for people to hear, because you can only motivate yourself. It's as much about the people around you as well. So what is a hard-earned lesson about scaling a business that more founders need to hear?
Oh, I think the hard-earned thing for scaling is, again, I know I keep coming back to it, but just making sure that you have these general spring cleans. I think, and I know we've talked a lot about luck and timing, but I think a lot of what happens in scaling businesses is the part which you can control, and that's sometimes the bit which you can mess up.
Right.
Because a lot of the time we have 20% of our actions are creating 80% of our revenue. And if we could just focus on that, our lives would be a lot easier. But we focus a lot on other fluff because it's distracting, because it makes us feel good, or because we're just avoiding the stuff which feels difficult. And actually having those kind of annual spring cleans where you get everything out, you're like, okay, what's working, what's not? And it can be anything of your SKUs, which you have historical SKUs which are not doing anything, or like marketing channels which you think are working for you, which no longer are, or team members or team structures which were brilliant last year when you were a certain type of business, but they're not so great now. And actually, it's such a simple thing. I always equate it to clearing out your cupboard. You get all your clothes out, you see what's working, you see what's not. You suddenly think, oh, that works quite well together. I've forgotten about that. And you think, no, that definitely has to go in the charity box. It's such a simple thing, but we just don't do it enough. And that's what, for people I speak to, what I really say, it's a very simple thing to do. Quite often, people can do it themselves. Sometimes they can't, they need outside help. But just the simple act of doing that, it makes you realise actually there's a lot more in here that is working. We just need to reorder it and then move on.
I like that. I like thinking about it as a spring clean. I'm running a workshop on Thursday, and I talk a lot about this, obviously, from a team perspective, and really taking that step back and having a look at what's working, what isn't working. What was working before might not be working now, and doing a slight course correct. So what about any habits, frameworks or mental models? For me, it's always mindfulness, but that have supported you and continue to support you through your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think one thing, I'm a big walker and runner, and I always used to do that listening to podcasts because I thought I could like better myself and learn more and learn about this AI thing and learn about that. But actually now I walk and run with nothing. I have completely like blank space time, and actually that's where stuff really starts to come out. And equally, I hate calling it journaling because I actually think it's just like writing a diary, but basically like free-form thoughts in the morning where you're not writing anything down, you're literally just writing your thoughts as they come out your head. So you can literally sit there writing, I don't know what to write, I want to go and have some breakfast. But that simple act of just clearing yourself in the morning, that for me was really impactful in order to make sure that I can then allow the kind of creative bucket to fill back up throughout the day. Yeah. So it's just really small, obvious things like that. And then another thing, going back to the walking thing, is just if you don't have to, just take the call as a call and go for a walk. Don't do it as a video. I think we all spend way too much time in front of a screen, like just getting exhausted or double screening, and it just doesn't work. So just take as many calls as you can out on the hoof, walking around. You'll feel so much better for it. Yeah.
Really good advice. Looking forward, what do you think the next big challenge or opportunity is? What excites you about Dame in terms of new products or things like that?
So I just think it's really thrilling that we have this next generation of girls coming through. So my daughter, when I started this, was 11 months. She is now just 13. And the fact that these girls are going to be growing up, going straight onto products like period pants or reusable products without ever having to be ingrained in a habit of using disposable products which are synthetic and bad for your body, that for me is really exciting. And I feel like Dame and it is really well poised to help push this forward, to push a better language, to push a better vision, to really change such a important component of a girl's life, because we all know that girls around puberty start to close in on themselves. They start to feel really embarrassed about their body, and having this thing not being adding to that, to be another factor of it, that for me is really exciting. And I think Dame, with some other brilliant companies who offer different products, is at the forefront of being able to really help push that forward.
Yeah, I agree. So if you could go back to day one, is there one big thing that you do differently in your story to date?
I think so many things that I would do differently. A load. I would trust myself more and really know that I'm the one who knows my business best. To trust my instinct, to not let myself be swayed by other people when I know actually in my heart what is right. I think that would be a kind of really critical part of it, because it is very easy when, particularly when you're at low ebbs or there is so much clutter on your plate, to take decisions based on other outside influences when actually quite often the time inside of you what's best. Yeah, it's just being a little bit steadfast, isn't it? Like most things that you've said, it's always a balance. So what advice, if any, would you give to founders starting out? Don't do it? No, joke. I would say, if founders who are starting out, I'd probably say two things. Probably they sound quite conflicting. First of all, would be like around your idea, like really be honest with yourself about your idea. I think quite often you find people who have come up with a solution and they try to shoehorn it onto a problem. And actually that problem doesn't really exist. And if it does exist, it doesn't exist for enough people in big enough numbers who are willing to pay the price that you want them to pay, because it's such a pain for them. So I'd be really honest with yourself about that. And then I'd push it a little further as well. And I'd ask yourself, okay, what is the correct amount of money that you can charge for this? And what are the correct channels that you can sell this in? And if those things don't all add up, you have to really face facts. And then on the other side of it is if it does, just go for it. Don't wait until you're 100% perfect. Go with when you've got something 70% perfect. Just get it out there, because it's actually in the doing that you learn the most and you get the most momentum. So just don't hold off for perfect, because that's a complete fantasy.
And I guess it's having that ability to iterate and listen to the market, take the feedback and keep pushing. Yeah. Superb. Anything else that you think you ought to share before we draw it to a close?
I think there is so much opportunity out there right now. I think it's about going out and looking and finding and innovating in spaces where you think you can make a difference. And I would really push as many people as you can to try and go and do something that has some kind of purpose or mission attached to it, because whatever you're going to do, it's going to be unbelievably hard. And actually, when you feel that you're doing it for a greater purpose or something that is bigger than you, that's bigger than the bottom line, that really helps pick you up on the down days. So yes, I would be a big advocate for that.
Wonderful. I can't possibly ask you to give me any more time. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So I just want to say a big thank you. There's loads of takeaways in that. You know, my favourite is the housekeeper.
Don't go and look in my cupboard right now, because it's an absolute tip. So do as I say, not as I do. But no, I think that for me is just a big thing. It's like, always go and have a spring clean, because there's quite quickly things gather dust which you don't need.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Celia. That's it for this episode of Scaling Stories Unfiltered. And if you got value from today's conversation, hit the subscribe button and leave a. It helps me more than it means I can continue to interview some amazing people and share their stories.